Hi, I am Angelina.
Brooklyn's skyline glowed with the fading hues of sunset, the kind of golden orange light that made the city look like it was breathing. On a quiet rooftop in Williamsburg, Harper Lee stood amidst string lights that twinkled gently above her head, peonies swaying softly in the evening breeze, and two empty vintage chairs that seemed to hold a silent invitation. Every detail of the rooftop garden had been meticulously planned. Months of work, hours of sketching layouts, tasting, adjusting, and perfecting every ribbon, candle, and floral arrangement. This was more than a wedding venue. It was a stage set for Harper's emotions, a space where joy, hope, and past wounds would converge. Harper ran her hands over the soft lace of her wedding dress, feeling the delicate texture brush against her skin. Her mind wandered to the same old message that had haunted her for years. "We'll be at Isabella's Tony Awards after party." Instead, rain check? It blinked on her phone like a ghost of past disappointments. Gregory and Victoria, her parents, had always favored Isabella, the golden child. And tonight, even on Harper's wedding day, history repeated itself. Ryan, her husband, stood quietly beside her, holding her hand with a grip that carried both empathy and patience. His calm presence was the anchor Harper had longed for through years of feeling invisible. She thought about every sacrifice she had made for her sister, baking midnight pastries before Broadway rehearsals, delivering extra cakes for award ceremonies, celebrating every small triumph of Isabella while her own victories went unnoticed. And now, standing on this rooftop, Harper realized the truth. The empty chairs, the twinkling lights, the perfect skyline, it was all proof of their absence and her overlooked life. A gentle breeze carried the distant hum of Manhattan traffic, blending with the soft rustle of peonies, and for a moment, Harper allowed herself to simply breathe. The calm was temporary, she knew, because deep inside an emotional storm was gathering. She clenched her fists slightly, determined that tonight's story would not be one of being forgotten. Tonight, she would claim her moment. Rooftop lights cast warm glows across the wooden floor, reflecting in Harper's teary eyes. She turned to Ryan, her voice trembling yet determined. "Let's make it beautiful for us." He smiled, squeezing her hand gently. "Exactly. No matter who shows up, we make this magical." And for a brief, fleeting moment, the city around them, the towering skyscrapers, the glowing skyline, the murmurs of life, became their private universe. As the evening deepened, Harper thought about her journey. From the small kitchen where she had first experimented with pastries to her viral bakery in Williamsburg, every failure, every burnt batch, every sleepless night had led her here. She had worked tirelessly, not for approval, not for praise, but because this was her craft, her passion, her identity. Yet tonight, as the lights danced on the petals of peonies and the gentle hum of distant traffic filled the air, she felt a quiet resolve settle within her. Her worth was not defined by anyone's presence or absence, but by her own courage, creativity, and love. The rooftop was quiet now, the city shimmering below. Harper's phone buzzed, another reminder of the past, but she didn't flinch. Instead, she took a deep breath, glanced at Ryan, and whispered, "This is our night, our story. No one can take that away from us." The twinkle of the string lights mirrored the sparkle in her eyes, and for the first time in a long time, Harper felt the weight of expectation lift, replaced by the promise of her own narrative unfolding. Little did she know, the real proof of neglect, and the emotional climax that would redefine her life, was waiting just a day away. The security footage, the old iMessages, and the undeniable truth about her parents' choices would soon arrive. But tonight, Harper allowed herself one thing, a perfect, serene pause amidst the chaos of a family that never truly saw her. the rooftop, Manhattan skyline, and twinkling lights weren't just scenery. They were silent witnesses to a woman reclaiming her story. The morning sun spilled golden light over Brooklyn, turning the streets into rivers of warmth and shadow. Harper Lee woke in the calm of her rooftop apartment, the skyline outside her window reminding her that the city never slept, never paused. But Harper's heart felt heavy. Despite the magic she had created on her wedding rooftop the night before, there lingered a persistent ache, a gnawing uncertainty that she couldn't shake. She thought about her parents, Gregory and Victoria, and the same old message that had haunted her for years flashed in her mind. "We'll be at Isabella's Tony Awards after-party. Instead, rain check?" The thought tightened around her chest like a vice. Every memory from her childhood came rushing back. Isabella's rehearsals, every Broadway performance, every award night while Harper silently baked, prepared, and supported from behind the scenes. Every smile of her parents seemed reserved for Isabella, leaving Harper to wonder if she had ever truly mattered to them. But now, standing on the rooftop balcony, looking at the sparkling Manhattan skyline, she felt a rising determination. Tonight she would not be invisible. She would seek the proof she deserved. By mid-morning, Harper decided to visit her bakery, a space that had always been her sanctuary. The aroma of fresh bread, sugar, and chocolate greeted her as she entered, comforting, yet fueling a restless urgency inside her.
They walked casually to the front desk, their eyes scanning briefly before Gregory's hand lifted her invitation. A small glance exchanged between them, a nod almost invisible, and then they turned and walked out, never once looking at Harper. The elevator doors closed. The moment was short, but the weight of it crashed down on her. Harper's hands trembled as she replayed the footage again and again. The confirmation she had subconsciously feared all her life now sat before her in undeniable clarity. They had chosen Isabella. Again. Her chest tightened, eyes stinging with tears, yet her jaw hardened with determination. This wasn't just neglect, it was validation of years of emotional favoritism. And while the sting was sharp, it ignited a fire she hadn't realized she still carried. Ryan, standing quietly beside her, wrapped his arms around her shoulders. "They chose her," he murmured gently, understanding without judgment. Harper exhaled slowly, letting the cold air of the bakery calm her racing mind. "Again," she whispered, her voice almost inaudible. But this time, there was no collapse, no surrender. Instead, there was clarity. She would not let this decision define her happiness or her wedding night. Her thoughts drifted to the upcoming rooftop event, the dance with Ryan's father, the magic of string lights against the Manhattan skyline, the peonies swaying in the breeze. Tonight, those lights wouldn't just illuminate the city. They would illuminate her strength, her resilience, and the love she had cultivated with Ryan. And yet the emotional storm was far from over. She knew that the evidence she now held, the iMessage, the security footage, was only the beginning. Her story, her perspective, would soon demand to be told. As she prepared the bakery for the morning rush, Harper's mind replayed every instance her parents had overlooked her. Birthdays, graduations, small triumphs at work, and late-night bakery experiments to perfect pastries. All those moments, once buried under disappointment, were now threads weaving a tapestry of determination. She realized that the absence of their acknowledgement did not diminish her value. On the contrary, it reinforced the necessity to create her own narrative, to claim her space, and to celebrate her success on her own terms. By late afternoon, Harper finally allowed herself a brief pause, leaning against the bakery window, gazing at the skyline. Manhattan shimmered in gold and silver, a city alive and eternal, much like the resilience stirring in her heart. She whispered to Ryan, "They may not be here, but we are creating magic, and that's enough." He smiled, eyes gleaming with quiet pride. More than enough. Tonight, it's all ours. As the sun dipped behind the towers, casting long shadows across Williamsburg, Harper felt a new energy rising, one of determination, creativity, and courage. The emotional storm of neglect had been identified. Now it was time to harness it, to transform it into something beautiful. The rooftop awaited, and so did the dance that would mark the first act of reclaiming her narrative, one step at a time. The morning sun poured over Brooklyn once again, but today it felt different. Lighter, warmer, full of possibilities. Harper Lee stood on the rooftop garden, her hands brushing over the peonies that once symbolized absence and neglect. Now they were symbols of resilience, of taking what was meant to be her pain and turning it into joy. The Manhattan skyline stretched before her like a canvas waiting to be painted, and for the first time in years, Harper felt that she was truly in control of the story being told. Tables were arranged with meticulous care, each covered with crisp white linens and dotted with centerpieces of fresh flowers. Vintage chairs lined the edges of the rooftop, not empty this time, but ready for anyone who wished to join. The scent of fresh pastries filled the air, a mixture of chocolate, vanilla, and the soft tang of freshly baked bread. For months, Harper had baked countless batches in her bakery, perfecting recipes, experimenting with flavors, and ensuring that every single dessert was more than just food. It was an experience. Today, that experience was for the community, for strangers who had never known her family drama, and for herself. By mid-morning, the first guests arrived. Couples, young professionals, families with children, and elderly neighbors stepped onto the rooftop with curious smiles. They were drawn not just by the promise of delicious cakes, but by the aura of joy and care that Harper had infused into every corner. She greeted them warmly, offering samples of chocolate tarts, lemon eclairs, and delicate mini cheesecakes. Each taste brought a smile, a nod of appreciation, a fleeting moment of delight that Harper absorbed like sunlight. Ryan moved beside her, helping carry trays, pouring coffee, and engaging guests in friendly conversation. His presence was a constant reassurance, a reminder that the people who truly mattered were the ones who showed up not out of obligation, but out of genuine love and respect. Harper watched as strangers laughed over shared bites of cake, snapping photos of the skyline behind them, and she felt a wave of satisfaction she had never experienced with her own family. This connection, this celebration was hers. As the rooftop filled with chatter and laughter, Harper reflected on the contrast between this moment and the countless times her parents had overlooked her. She thought about the security footage, the messages, and every moment Isabella had been prioritized over her. But instead of bitterness, she felt empowerment. She was no longer waiting for approval, no longer needing validation from those who had consistently chosen otherwise. Her happiness was self-made, her success earned, and her story unfolding exactly as it should. Children ran between tables, sampling cupcakes and chasing each other through the string lights, their laughter mingling with the soft hum of distant traffic and the occasional honk of Manhattan below. Harper noticed a young couple taking pictures in front of the skyline, their faces lit with awe and wonder. She smiled to herself, realizing that this rooftop, once a symbol of absence, had transformed into a stage for joy, for shared experiences, and for the magic of human connection. At midway through the event, Ryan's father, the legendary jazz saxophonist, arrived. The familiar notes of his music began to float across the rooftop, wrapping the space in warm, soulful melodies. Harper paused for a moment, letting the sound wash over her. She closed her eyes, remembering the dance the night before, and felt a deep, unshakable sense of belonging. Family wasn't always defined by blood. It was defined by love, support, and the people who chose to show up for you. Guests gathered near the music, some swaying gently, others clapping along, while Harper moved among them, offering slices of cake and engaging in conversation. She listened to their stories, their small victories, their moments of struggle, and each one reminded her of the universality of resilience.
She realized that her own pain had given her a unique empathy, allowing her to connect with strangers in ways she had never imagined. As the sun began to set, casting a warm golden glow over the skyline, Harper stood at the edge of the rooftop, looking out at the city that had witnessed her journey. She felt the weight of years lift from her shoulders, the neglect, the favoritism, the silent sidelining, all replaced by the tangible joy she had created for herself and others. Ryan stepped beside her, wrapping his arm around her waist. "Look at this," he said softly. "This is your world. You made it beautiful, Harper." Harper smiled, tears brimming in her eyes. "It's not just mine," she replied. "It's for everyone who needed a little sweetness in their lives." And in that moment, the rooftop was more than a venue or a garden. It was a testament to Harper's resilience, creativity, and the power of transforming pain into purpose.
The twinkling lights mirrored the sparkle in her eyes, the Manhattan skyline glowed like a sea of possibilities, and Harper finally felt the quiet, profound joy of being fully seen and fully alive. The Plaza Hotel gleamed in its historic grandeur, the chandeliers casting cascading light across marble floors and gilded walls. Isabella, Harper's sister, the so-called golden child, moved through the halls like a queen in a world perfectly tailored to her. Every detail of her Great Gatsby-themed wedding had been meticulously curated. Flapper dresses, jazz bands, gold and black decor, champagne fountains that sparkled like diamonds in the crystal glasses. Guests arrived in elegant cars, their laughter and chatter echoing through the grand halls, painting a picture of opulence and sophistication. But behind the glittering facade, something was missing. Harper, standing on her rooftop the night before, had known what it felt like to wait for acknowledgement and never receive it. Today, Isabella would learn a different kind of absence. Half-empty tables, cousins who claimed suddenly feeling ill, aunts and uncles mysteriously canceled at the last minute. Her grand wedding was losing the very people it had been designed to impress. The irony wasn't lost on Harper, who had quietly followed the unfolding events through subtle updates and messages shared in the family group chat. Harper's own wedding was intimate, filled with love, warmth, and intentional joy, while Isabella's ceremony began to feel like a hollow spectacle where appearances mattered more than connection. The contrast was stark and almost poetic. As Harper arranged slices of cake for 200 strangers on her rooftop, laughter, smiles, and heartfelt thanks filling the air, Isabella faced the cold reality of formality without genuine presence. Guests posed for photos, took selfies with the grandiose decor, but the absence of those who truly mattered, the love, warmth, and shared joy that makes a wedding memorable, was palpable. Messages from concerned friends and relatives began trickling in to Isabella. "Sorry we can't make it. COVID has hit our family," read one. Another, "Really wish we could be there. Something came up," popped up on the group chat. The excuses piled up like bricks in a wall, separating Isabella from the emotional resonance that Harper had effortlessly cultivated on her rooftop. While she had orchestrated perfection, the impermanence of empty gestures became painfully evident. Isabella's meticulously planned event, designed to showcase grandeur, now began to feel lonely, hollow, and ultimately less meaningful. Harper, watching from a distance, felt a quiet sense of vindication, not a triumphant gloating, but a subtle, serene satisfaction that comes from knowing that true value isn't dictated by titles, appearances, or social performances. Love, connection, and recognition can't be bought or orchestrated. They must be earned and freely given. And on her Brooklyn rooftop, among laughter, music, and genuine human joy, Harper had achieved exactly that. She allowed herself a small, almost imperceptible smile, acknowledging that life's ironies can be poetic without being cruel. Meanwhile, Isabella tried to maintain composure, a forced smile plastered across her face as she posed for photos beside her gold-accented cake. Every moment of glitz, every twirl of her flapper dress, every note from the live jazz band seemed to highlight the contrast between external appearances and internal fulfillment. Guests moved through the ornate ballroom, sipping champagne, murmuring polite compliments, while Isabella's eyes darted toward empty seats she had expected to be filled with love, laughter, and familial pride. The realization of absence, the very absence Harper had endured for years, hit Isabella with a slow, simmering clarity. Back on the rooftop, Harper watched the sun begin to dip, painting the Brooklyn skyline in shades of rose, gold, and lavender. Children's laughter, strangers' joyful exclamations, Ryan's quiet presence, the hum of life beneath twinkling lights, all converged into a singular moment of triumph. Harper had created a space where love and celebration were authentic, where her efforts were recognized, where every small gesture mattered. In this vivid tableau of human connection, she finally understood that recognition from those who had long overlooked her was not necessary for her fulfillment. Isabella's wedding, for all its grandeur, continued to unfold as a cautionary contrast. Half-empty tables, politely smiling guests, and the silent hum of unmet expectations became a mirror reflecting what Harper had already learned. The essence of a celebration lies not in opulence, but in presence, sincerity, and shared joy. Harper's rooftop, though simple in comparison, held warmth, laughter, and meaning, while Isabella's glittering event, despite its elegance, lacked the very essence that defines true celebration. By evening, Harper and Ryan stood together, looking out over the rooftop at the city that never paused. Harper whispered almost to herself, "It's not about them. It's about what we create, the love we share, and the moments we choose to cherish." Ryan's hand tightened around hers, affirming, "And you did it perfectly. Tonight, you are seen, celebrated, and loved." The skyline glimmered with promise. String lights swayed gently in the breeze, and Harper allowed herself to fully absorb the moment, a culmination of years of perseverance, quiet resilience, and the unwavering belief that her story, her happiness, and her success were hers to define. Brooklyn's skyline had transformed once again, now shimmering under the soft glow of early evening lights. The city's pulse, honks, distant chatter, the hum of life, created a symphony that Harper Lee felt deep in her bones. Today was no ordinary day. It marked the culmination of months of hard work, emotional turmoil, and quiet resilience. The rooftop garden, once a stage of heartbreak, neglect, and unanswered expectations, had become a canvas for celebration, empowerment, and community. Harper adjusted the peonies on the table, their petals catching the glow of string lights above. She looked at Ryan, whose calm presence had carried her through moments of doubt, frustration, and deep emotional pain. "Can you believe this?" she whispered, a hint of awe in her voice. Ryan smiled, eyes glimmering with pride. "I do. You made this happen, Harper, all of it. And they're finally seeing what we've always known. Your magic, your heart, your talent." The guests had arrived early, a mix of strangers, local neighbors, and loyal fans of Harper's viral bakery. Children darted between tables, sampling cupcakes and tarts, their laughter echoing like music across the rooftop. Couples held hands as they tasted delicate pastries, complimenting the layers of flavor and the artistry in each dessert. For Harper, it was more than a celebration of her baking skills. It was a celebration of her life, her choices, and her ability to create joy even when others had failed to acknowledge her. The atmosphere was electric, yet intimate, a rare combination that few events could manage. Harper moved among the guests, offering samples and sharing small stories behind each pastry. Every interaction was a reminder that recognition could be earned through dedication, authenticity, and generosity, not through the approval of those who had long overlooked her. For the first time, Harper realized that the power of her story lay not in validation from her family, but in the tangible joy she created for herself and others. Midway through the event, a familiar face appeared, one of the food critics from the New York Times. Harper had been expecting coverage for months, but seeing the journalist in person, notebook in hand, and a keen, observant gaze made her stomach flutter with a mixture of excitement and nervous anticipation. They approached Harper, complimenting the creativity of her pastries, the meticulous detail in presentation, and the unique concept of hosting a free rooftop tasting for the community. Harper felt a surge of pride, not just for her work, but for the life she had chosen to lead, a life defined by her own terms rather than her parents' expectations.
As the sun dipped lower, casting a soft pink and orange hue across the skyline, Harper and Ryan stepped aside to savor a quiet moment together. "We did it," Harper murmured, leaning into him. "We really did it, and it feels right." Ryan nodded, wrapping an arm around her shoulders. "It's more than right. It's perfect, and no one can take this from you, not even them." Harper smiled, feeling the weight of years of neglect lift from her heart, replaced with a sense of empowerment and self-assuredness she had long sought. Later, as guests mingled and music played softly in the background, Harper took a deep breath and reflected on the journey that had led her here. From countless late nights perfecting recipes, to the quiet pain of being overlooked by her parents, to the heartbreak of empty chairs on her wedding day, every challenge had been a stepping stone towards this moment. She realized that her parents' absence, once a source of pain, had inadvertently pushed her to create something extraordinary, something that was entirely hers. The evening reached its gentle crescendo when Harper and Ryan, inspired by the joy surrounding them, decided to host an impromptu dance. The string lights twinkled, the Manhattan skyline shimmered, and Ryan's father, the legendary jazz saxophonist, played softly in the background. Harper stepped onto the small dance floor, allowing herself to be swept up in the music, the laughter, and the shared energy of the community. It was a dance not just of celebration, but of liberation, an embodiment of resilience, love, and the triumph of personal choice over past neglect. As night fell, Harper received a notification. An early draft of the New York Times feature on her bakery had been published online. The article praised her innovative desserts, her viral bakery concept, and the community event that had turned a personal heartbreak into a shared celebration. Harper read each line, a sense of satisfaction washing over her. She had achieved recognition not through connections or favoritism, but through talent, perseverance, and the courage to claim her story. Standing at the edge of the rooftop, looking out over Brooklyn and the endless city lights, Harper felt a profound sense of closure. The empty chairs, the past neglect, the comparison to her sister, all had been transformed into motivation and a narrative of empowerment. She whispered to Ryan, "They may never see it the way we do, but that doesn't matter. We created magic here, and that's enough." Ryan kissed her forehead gently, a silent promise of continued support and shared joy. The rooftop, once a silent witness to absence and disappointment, had become a testament to Harper's resilience, creativity, and unshakable belief in herself. And as she looked out over the city, Harper knew that the story she had fought to live was finally her own, illuminated by love, joy, and the unshakable power of claiming one's own happiness.